They kneel before Putin. They have no other alternative to the Trumpist economic threat, and they wink at the BRICS to save their economies. Putin will be the ambassador of the group, and on the table hangs the Euro relations for the Ukraine issue, which will save Europe from its own commercial death. And it is that with the US proposal to raise tariffs to 200% on some products that are exported from the old continent, the 27 members are looking for an alternative. They will have to beg Moscow for the details below. Well, let me tell you that they are unmissable. This Saturday, March 22nd, we will talk about the trap of your sides, the rise of Russia and China. More information at the end. Russia will save Europe, giving it the possibility of looking at the BRICS and exchanging some of the products with payment benefits and without taxes, bribes, or tariffs on productions that leave and enter the continent from different nations. In addition, with that possibility, the Europeans are in one pocket and expand the horizon as a trader, in turn providing a way to negotiate their hydrocarbons and fuel derivatives towards a market that represented 40% of supplies for them. Even other nations such as Brazil, which holds the pro tempore presidency of the group, establish agreements with members of emerging countries, and are exposed to developing possible joint actions in the fight against the debt crisis in Europe. Brazil, Russia, India, and China propose a direct link to the European Union, not only to air out exchanges, but to serve as a reference for operation. They are preparing an upcoming summit in July that will be parallel to the annual meeting of the International Monetary Forum with the Davos Summer Meeting or Forum in Dalian. China, the BRICS increases the process of de-dollarization and inserts the plans for a common currency as an alternative to the peso system in internal and foreign transactions. In fact, the Brazilian Minister of Economy, Guido Manteca, announced that our meeting is a sign that we are fighting for a more equitable and egalitarian world. We oppose the neoliberal globalization imposed by the large economies. He also pointed out the meeting that the IMF and the World Bank, in unison with ours, makes it clear that these countries are not immune to the debt crisis that leads to the weakness of the economies to which they export. Similarly, Russian President Arkady Borkovich's chief economic advisor told Reuters the G20 was a more appropriate forum to discuss the Eurozone crisis. It is important to study possible requests for help from the European trade bloc. Therefore, the Russian government indicated that the request to join the BRICS must be studied more thoroughly because they are distancing themselves from a joint initiative and it is necessary to investigate each case. On the other hand, and agreeing with the Russians, Chinese Prime Minister Wen Jiabao noted that we promise in Dalian that this forum will contribute more to balanced global growth. We will also continue to increase our investments in Europe. At the same time, the Brazilian economic newspaper Valor said one of the offers that Brazil will make will be to increase the share of international reserves of the BRICS countries applied in securities denominated in euros. It turns out that the interest of these emerging economies to help the more developed ones. It happens that Brazil's intentions may be hindered by the meeting depending on the European position going forward regarding new trade negotiations on this issue. Luis Mendes of the Central Bank of Brazil expressed, "Our country has good intentions, but they will be affected by three fundamental aspects. First, security. Second, liquidity. And third, return on investment." In that sense, Luis Mendes repeated the fears of the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, about the BRICS. He mentioned that they will limit themselves to buying debt from safe countries like Germany and the United Kingdom. By the way, within the BRICS, the concern is also latent because 71% of Brazil's reserves are in assets from the United States and 18% are European. Therefore, this turn towards the old continent must be done in a consensual and very subtle manner. In fact, the opening of the BRICS towards Europe will attract other currencies including the euro, the Australian or Canadian dollar, as well as kick the US dollar, causing the year to unravel. On the other hand, the RBS strategist for the North American chain, Robert Sinch, said, "The central bank speaks based on the current situation and the minister does so in political terms. Emerging countries in general are interested in global stability. At the same time," he sentenced, "they want to export. If they think that participating in the debt markets in a selective manner is a reasonable thing to do to build greater stability in the global economic environment, it will not be an irrational decision, but a political one. Without a doubt, Europe sees the group of emerging countries as the most immediate alternative to save themselves in a very complicated geopolitical context. They also seek to attract Brazil as one of the leading countries of the emerging states. In addition, for the Europeans to be close to the BRICS is to project a more promising future. To the extent that the president of Emerging Market Strategies, William Gamble, wrote, "The BRICS finally become the rescuers. The situation will not be without irony because the poor would be helping the rich." He even stated that emerging countries have gained a lot of prominence in the last 20 years. Their GDP per capita continues to grow and will prevail over that of developed countries. These are the figures. The production of BRICS now represents 38% of the world GDP, double what it was 2 decades ago. It is for this reason that Europe winks at the commercial group. It continues to see it as the most immediate port since its exports have doubled in this period. They have money that makes the difference, and their foreign currency reserves exceed $300 billion. The BRICS will save the old continent. They seek alliances and diversify their economic associations. The Europeans try to reach the group of emerging economies as a counterweight to the G7 and consolidate their position by forging closer ties. In fact, they are redefining economic and political power relations on an international scale. They will erase Trump from the commercial axis with his whiplash policy, and they are looking far ahead to that new opportunity with very strengthened economies and where they can take advantage of the production of hydrocarbons derived from fuels, technologies, and services. This Saturday, March 22nd, Trump wants to end the war in Ukraine. The real reason is that he knows that China is his next enemy and that an alliance between the Asian giant and Russia will be the end of the empire. BRICS, an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, represents a significant coalition of emerging economies. These nations collectively account for a substantial portion of the world's population and economic output. Each member brings unique strengths to the table. Brazil's vast natural resources, Russia's energy exports, India's technological prowess, China's manufacturing capabilities, and South Africa's strategic position in Africa. Together, they aim to reshape global economic dynamics and enhance cooperation among developing countries. The potential of these nations working in unison is immense, and their collaboration could redefine the global economic landscape for years to come. As they navigate the complexities of international relations, their collective vision for a more equitable and prosperous world remains steadfast. Stay tuned as we continue to explore the dynamics and future prospects of this powerful alliance.